Hello there everybody, welcome back to Movie Squirm. Now today is going to be a first for the channel. It's going to be my first top 10 video. There's going to be plenty of more of these to come as well. But I thought this one would coincide nicely to me opening my channel. So I've only had this channel open for a couple of weeks. So I thought it'd be fitting to do my top 10 horror movie openings. Now more often than not with horror movies, we are thrown into something horrific or scary or terrifying within the first 5 minutes of the movie. And then the film will get into its characters, its story, what's going on, before bringing you back to that horrific event and what is linked to it. So I always think it's a good way to start horror movies off. And these are, in my opinion, the best of the best. These are my favourite opening scenes to horror movies. So without further ado, let's just get into it with number 10. Number 10 is going to be from one of my favourite horror movies of all time, Candyman. And this starts off very nicely with a kind of shuddering little score, if you like, from Philip Glass there, with a drone just kind of going over these city skyscrapers with a top-down view of the hustle and bustle of Chicago, basically. And then we are taken to this skyscraper with all these bees surrounding it, and all these bees kind of fly out the skyscraper there in their thousands. And we have Candyman's voice, Tony Todd himself, with that deep, hypnotizing voice.
They will say that I have shed innocent blood. What's blood for, if not for shedding?
And he's kind of introducing himself in a creepy type of way there. And for me, it's kind of like Candyman is haunting this city that we've just seen. And not only that, we are thrown into this fucking story about a babysitter who said Candyman's name in the mirror 5 times, and she is gutted while she's kind of babysitting with her boyfriend there, and the blood comes through the roof, and the babysitter's boyfriend looks up, and you just hear a big woman scream for help. That is something that just tells me this is a fucking horror movie, this is pure horror, and you're in for a ride. And after seeing that, I was kind of thinking, wow, you know, something really terrifying is going on here with this Candyman bloke. It's a really great way to set up a brilliant horror story from Clive Barker, and it just totally works. So yeah, Candyman gotta be in there in this top 10 for horror openings. It's such an eerie telling of and way to start the film off. Number 9 is going to be House of a Thousand Corpses, directed by Rob Zombie. Now, this film is definitely not for everyone, but I remember seeing the cover art of this movie. My dad had it on DVD there, and I just thought, this looks like the biggest load of crap I've ever seen. This movie is going to be terrible. It looks so low budget. It just looks like a silly movie. And I think that's why it kind of made the top 10, because after the opening scene, I was hooked straight away, and this movie surprised the hell out of me. I am a fan of this film and also its sequel, The Devil's Rejects. But this is basically about this guy called Captain Spaulding, played by Sid Haig, who runs this weird little convenience store with a horror attraction attached to it. It's like a museum, but it's kind of a ride that you go on through the history of serial killers and stuff. But anyway, these two idiots, as the opening scene goes on, you will learn that they aren't the smartest tools in the box, decide to rob this local convenience store. And Sid Haig is kind of arguing back with them. He's not scared in the slightest. He does not care that he's got a gun pointed at his face.
I'll tell you what, Ski King, why don't you just take your mama home some chicken, and then I won't have to stuff my boot all up in your ass.
And I'm like, this guy is kind of a mysterious character here. I mean, has he got some background? Other people in this situation would be terrified and just give them the money. You know, they wouldn't risk their life. And then next minute, it kind of kicks off a little bit, and Sid Haig pulls a gun out himself from behind the counter and shoots both these guys in the head. And I was just thinking, wow, what is going on with this guy? Has he got some history? Is he attached to this horror story somehow? And it just made it even more mysterious. in a couple of scenes later in the movie when our main characters, our four main protagonists, go into the store and he's just acting like normal, like nothing's ever happened, and he's just running his shop like a day-to-day business there. And it all kind of comes together towards the end of the film, but I remember just being hooked after seeing that opening. So number 9 is House of a Thousand Corpses. Number 8 is going to be Jaws from Steven Spielberg. Now, this is a very, very simple opening for a movie, but it's so impactful. A group of friends just sitting on the beach there, and this girl has the hots for this guy, and she kind of gives him a hint that she's going to run into the sea there, so he will follow her. And she basically goes skinny dipping and jumps into the sea and goes for a swim. And next minute, we are hearing this kind of haunting score. It kind of opens the movie up with the credits, and John Williams really did create something unbelievable here. I do think it makes the movie so much better because of this score. Steven Spielberg even said it himself, 70% of the movie is this score here, and it's just something very, very simple. We all know what it is. And next minute, this girl is in the middle of the ocean, and she's just feeling something on her leg there. She kind of pulls down a little bit, she's jerked, and then she's just pulled under the water. And we kind of all know going into this movie, it's about a shark, but it just sets up that there's something lurking on this beach here that is very, very dangerous. And then just after that, we hear that people are kind of going missing and stuff. So it's a great setup for the movie, and a very, very simple one, possibly the simplest one on this list, but it just works. So yeah, number 8 has got to be Jaws. Number 7 is going to be from my favourite horror movie of all time, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974, directed by Tobe Hooper. Now, it's really the voice of John Larroquette that really is my favourite part of this opening.
The film which you are about to see is an account of the tragedy which befell a group of 5 youths.
He basically says that these 5 youths are going on a road trip and they run into some unspeakable horror. They could never have imagined the amount of brutality and macabre that they were going to witness that day and stuff. But the deep voice that he has here just really sets the tone, and it just feels like a realistic portrayal of something that happened that day is gonna be seen before our very eyes. Just after this narration here, he even says it's one of the biggest crimes in American history, and this guy was paid in weed, believe it or not. There's a little fun fact there, and it's become one of the most iconic horror movie voices of all time. Basically, I get so giddy every time I hear this voice. It just really gets me in the mood for the movie. I absolutely adore it. And then after that, we are kind of treated to a rotten corpse that's just propped up in this cemetery here. And it's just so strange to look at. And in the background on the radio, we are hearing that corpses are being dug up in the graveyard by some unknown person who's going around. And it just really sets the tone that this outback in Texas has a lot of strange people living there. We are going to run into some dirty, dangerous individuals, which we do. And it's not a place that you kind of want to be at this very moment in time in the middle of the 70s. I just think it's so retro and it just totally works. It's a fantastic opening. To me, the greatest horror movie of all time. I absolutely adore it. So number 7 is The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Number 6 is going to be A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddys Revenge. Now, you say what you want about this movie, but I have a hell of a lot of respect for it, mixed with a bunch of nostalgia. This is one of the very first Freddy movies I ever seen. It's one of the reasons that I absolutely love horror. And this is Freddy at his absolute darkest. And I watched this not long ago, this opening scene, for a little bit of look back for this video and it's still kind of haunting to me. This terrified me as a kid because I was only kind of getting into horror, and something as simple as getting the school bus to school is turned into a living nightmare here, with Jesse, who is kind of an outcast in school, and people on the bus are laughing at him and stuff, and the bus driver starts to get a little bit crazy and speeding the bus up here, and they're telling him to stop. He's not listening. And if being driven to the middle of this field with a maniacal school bus driver there isn't bad enough, wait till you see Freddy Krueger get out that goddamn seat. I also love that it's Robert Englund actually driving the bus here, really, so he got a little cameo there. But when Freddy is kind of got them on these two big concrete pillars and it's thunder and lightning outside and he's walking towards them, just scraping his claw against the chair there, and these two girls and Jesse are just moving to the back of the bus, but it's going to tip if they go even further back, so they have to move towards Freddy. It's a genius opening, in my opinion, and it is still quite terrifying to this day. Freddy is not scary to me, but in this movie, man, he creeped me the hell out, and it's all topped off by a terrifying scream from Jesse, played by Mark Patton there. He really is scared in this movie. You can just tell he pulled it off, the acting and all that here, and it's a shame it was the only movie that he was in. But for me, definitely the best opening of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, and that has had some pretty good openings. But for me, it's got to be Freddys Revenge on A Nightmare on Elm Street 2. That is number 6. Number 5 is going to be from probably my least favourite movie on this list, but there is no denying how great of a horror movie opening that this is, and that is from the film Ghost Ship. Now, I don't dislike this movie or anything, it's just the weakest one on this list, really, but this is a film clip that always pops up on social media. I always see it getting shared, like, look at this horror movie opening, can you guess what movie this is off and stuff? And it is a pretty strong opening. I can't deny that at all. That's why it's on this list. Now, we just see a bunch of people partying on this ship in the... It seems to take place like 50, 100 years ago. I can't quite remember when the movie explains when it was, but it's a bunch of people, you know, all dressed up for the night out on the ship, all enjoying themselves, drinking champagne, you know, having a great time. And a bit of chicken wire is suddenly kind of pulled across the ship there, and we follow this young girl that she is kind of our eye-opener for what is going on, basically. And this chicken wire is just stretched right across the deck of this ship, and people are starting to have body parts fall off them and stuff. A lot of people are killed within an instant there, and the blood is just shed all over the screen, all over the ship's deck. And nothing says Ghost Ship like an opening like that. So it really does set you up for a great time. It's a shame that it doesn't quite live up to that for the rest of the film, but it is a solid horror movie opening. So I got to put Ghost Ship here at number 5. Number 4 is going to be Halloween from 1978, directed by John Carpenter. Now, this is another one like Jaws, kind of a simple scene. It's just this teenage babysitter being stabbed up. But what John Carpenter does really well with the... Remember, this is a very low-budget film. He worked wonders with what he had here. He does it all from a first-person point of view. And I think that really worked for the scene because of its climax, which I'll just get to in a minute. But we see this murderer put this mask on, and it's just like these two little eyes, you know, on the camera. I think they might have done it with tape or something, I read on the IMDb trivia. But, you know, we just see this person get a knife out to draw. We hear that little famous Halloween eerie sound. We follow this person's first point of view up the stairs, and he is just ready to kill. He's got this knife in his hand, and he basically goes and stabs the girl upstairs to death numerous times. And what works for this scene, because of the first person point of view, is that when the parents turn up and take the mask off, we see that it's a 6-year-old kid who has just killed his sister. And we know from this very point on that this kid is just plain evil. And what tops it off more than anything is that famous John Carpenter Halloween score that just kicks in, and we see this pumpkin lit up and it says Halloween, and I'm just like, fuck yeah, that always works for me. I just think it's a fantastic opening to one of the greatest horror movies of all time. That score, man, that is possibly the greatest horror movie score of all time. So number 4 is Halloween. Number 3 might be a little bit of a cheat here because some people may not argue that this is horror, but to me it's half a horror movie, half an action film. There's definitely a hell of a lot of horror elements here, and there's lots and lots of vampires, and that is Blade. Now, a lot of movies' scenes are enhanced by their music, their kick-ass soundtrack. For example, the techno scene in Terminator 1, for me, the greatest movie scene of all time, that is amped up because of the music, and the Blade has a similar situation going for it with all this kick-ass techno music in this nightclub. And this is basically about this guy who is lured there by his vampire girlfriend, and he's just going to become food for these vampires who hang out in this nightclub, basically. And the music is just kick-ass, you know, you're kind of wondering what's going on here. And this guy's girl just leaves him, and he's just wandering this nightclub, and he is like a lost soul. And next minute, the sprinklers come out, and all blood is poured onto everyone in the nightclub, and everyone is just, you know, just, it's like they're all on drugs because they're loving it that much. And this guy's like, what's going on? And he realizes that his girlfriend is a vampire. And what I love about this, he's about to become mincemeat, basically. Then Wesley Snipes just comes in and kicks some fucking ass, man. I mean, he's taking vampires out left, right, and center. He is someone that you just don't mess with. And all the vampires are fucking terrified of him. They know, they go towards him, they take him on, but they know they're gonna lose. And for me, it's just a really cool opening scene that really just sets the film up to be one of the best action horror movies I think I've ever seen. I love this movie. At one point, I thought it was the greatest film I'd ever seen when I was a teenager. Obviously, I don't think that now, but this is the scene that was my favorite. This is my favorite scene in the entire film. So number 3 is Blade. Number 2 is going to be a very, very popular pick, and I'm willing to bet a lot of you thought this was going to be in number 1. But number 2 is Scream. Now, this, I would not argue with anyone who said this is the best horror opening of all time, even though it's not my personal favorite. It came damn close. But there is so many great things about this scene. It's a good 10-15 minute scene that just spilled so much tension. This Drew Barrymore's character is basically just wandering around the house, making some popcorn. She's about to watch a horror movie. She gets a call from this mysterious voice who is kind of flirty with her, but it sounds very, very sadistic. And she is kind of having a little bit of a flirt back, but then it soon gets very, very sinister, and this voice starts sort of threatening her, really.
Why do you want to know my name?
I want to know who I'm looking at.
What did you say?
And he wants to play a little game with her, like a horror movie quiz, really. And he shows how serious he is because he's got her boyfriend strapped to a chair there, ready to be killed if she gets any questions wrong. So when she sees her boyfriend, Steve, she knows he means business. And this Ghostface character kind of tricks her into asking a horror question. Who's the killer in Friday the 13th? And us horror fans, hardcore fans, will know the answer to that. It is, of course, Pamela Voorhees. But she says Jason because he's the killer in them all, apart from the first one. And it is, in fact, the wrong answer. And her boyfriend, his guts are just poured all over the chair that he's sitting in there. And it just goes on from there. Ghostface turns up, this iconic horror movie character, and chases her all around the house. But Another great thing is the movie posters kind of throw you off. Drew Barrymore is at the centre of them there, and next minute she's just stabbed brutally and hung from a fucking tree for her mum and dad to find her. That is brutal as hell. But just before that, it also sets the rest of the movie up, because Drew Barrymore's character just takes the mask off there. We don't see who it is, and it also tells you that this is a whodunit movie. So it's kind of, it's genius. It really is, because it also shows that this is going to be a little bit of a parody on the slasher genre while being a slasher itself, with all the horror movie questions and stuff. It just totally works. It's a fantastic horror movie opening to one of the greatest horror movies ever made, in my opinion. So number 2 is Scream. Number 1, though, is gonna be, and this might be a surprise to some people, Final Destination. Now, there is a massive reason for this. This scene has stuck with me since the day I watched it, man. I cannot get on a plane, I cannot go on holiday without this scene popping into my head. And I know it's only a movie, but my God, man, this psychologically has scarred me for life. Now, if you haven't seen Final Destination, I'm sure most of you have. This is basically about a bunch of characters who cheat death by basically surviving a plane crash. Now, it all opens with Alex, who's going on a group trip with his friends from school. They're all going to Paris. And as soon as he kind of gets to the airport, the film lets you know that something isn't right. There is a haunting little score in the background there, that something eerie is about to happen. There's an atmosphere about him just traveling through the airport. He goes to the toilet, and a song, I think it's by John Denver, comes on the radio, who died in a plane crash. All the little signs are kind of just pointing towards him. He walks across the walkway to get on the plane. He looks down. There's a car with a 666 number on it. All these signs are saying to Alex, do not get on this plane, whatever you do. It's thunder and lightning outside. It's raining, pouring outside. The wind is battering the windows. He gets on the plane. And even things like the tray that comes down is broken, And what ensues is a terrifying scene that really we see the plane just going to shit. The sides are coming off. It's shaking like hell after takeoff. And then we just see basically characters falling out the plane and stuff, flying around, whacking their heads on the ceiling of the plane. And eventually Alex's face is burned to a crisp when the plane blows up. And then he awakens, and he's still not on the plane yet. Or he's woke up on the plane, and it hasn't took off yet, and he noticed that the tray is broken, like in his dream. He gets off the plane, and a few people believe him and get off with him. The plane takes off, and kaboom. He was right. And that scene just sticks with me. It really does. It envisions everything terrifying that could happen if you are in a plane crash, I think. I don't think anything could be more scary than that in life. Just being in that situation, it really, really does set it up to be a great movie. It is. Final Destination is an awesome film, but for me, definitely the most terrifying scene I've ever witnessed in a movie, and definitely the greatest horror movie opening, in my opinion. So number 1 is Final Destination. Okay guys, hope you all enjoyed this top 10 horror movie openings. What are your favourite horror movie openings? I was gonna maybe put When a Stranger Calls in there. I know that's one of the best, but I have not seen that movie, so I think that was kind of unfair. Maybe if this list changes in a couple of years, I'll do it again if I see some more horror movie openings that kind of make the top 10. But let me know your thoughts down below. What did you think of my picks? Do you agree? Do you disagree? And I'll try and get back to you all, I promise. Don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe. It will really help me out. Thank you so much, and I'll see you all on the next video. Take care.